No, you make me wanna shout. Hey guys and girls, I'm here today to talk about the new Final Destination movie, Final Destination Bloodlines, which is out this week. The first in the franchise for well over a decade now. I've done all the previous movies on the channel. I did them with Rachel, so I've set up a playlist which is on the channel now. I have been releasing this into IMAX cinema screenings as well, so there have been some IMAX showings. The cinema I went to didn't have the IMAX option, so if anyone's seen it in IMAX, let me know what you thought of it. Like, does it benefit being in IMAX? Having seen like just the regular version, I can see how certain scenes that they're really pushing the IMAX angle, and I'm not sure if it would really enhance my experience or me liking the movie any more than I already did. But it's you can definitely see why it's gone into IMAX in some cases. The beginning of the film is actually in the 60s. Couple who are on a date night, and they go to this fancy like restaurant which is in a sky view tower, and there's all sorts of shenanigans. There's all sorts of teases about how death is going to come and get them. So you get some teases with like the Johnny Cash song Ring of Fire playing. You get the lucky penny, which is turned out to be an unlucky penny, which they come to. But they're a young couple on a date, this fancy place, and the plan is that he's going to propose to her on that night. And there's a couple of other little reveals, like her being pregnant. And this turns out to be the grandmother. The woman in the opening scene is the grandmother of the main character, Steph. So we get a Final Destination thing where things start to go wrong up on this tower and everyone is put in danger. And by the end of the scene, it appears as though everyone has died. But then the twist, as we find out later, is that Steph is dreaming all this, and what she's dreaming is actually a premonition. So it's a premonition which her grandmother had. So once again, it's the Final Destination gimmick where the main character experiences the events of what's going to happen, and then she tries to stop it before everybody dies. But there are consequences, and as it turned out, the grandmother did stop it, but then death comes back for revenge, as it always does. And there's certain other things, like the Skyview thing never reopened. So all these years later, Steph, who, as I said, is the granddaughter, a whole backstory of why the family are estranged from the grandmother. Steph also hasn't had a relationship with her mother. They've fallen out. She's got this massive family, which is very convenient for the plot, but all these different cousins who she visits. And she's a university student, but because of some of the nightmare she's been having and how it's affected her, she's kind of on leave from uni, and her scholarship is on the line. And she starts to try to convince the family that something isn't quite right. Then she needs to find the grandmother. Told by the grandmother that years ago her husband was taken and death came back for revenge, but that she's basically been fine because she stayed in the cabin all these years, but she's slowly dying from cancer, and is willing to just accept her fate that way. But she does end up dying basically when she tries to prove to Steph that she's telling the truth. Steph then gets the book from her, which has all the history in, and is then the book gives her all the details of what potentially could happen now. To pick up one of the positive of the movie, and that is that Todd does once again appear in a cameo role. it is his final movie appearance, so it's also a very sad moment to see him appear. It's very poignant, and once again, he makes an impression. And it's sad because you can see in the scene that he was coming towards the end, or then he wasn't in very good health going into this movie. But he was a big part of this franchise in the early movies, so definitely fitting that he gets to be involved before his death. It's also a really eerie scene because of the nature of the scene, because the message of the scene is then this guy is retiring, then this is the end of his life, he's coming towards the end, and he's chosen now to retire and just enjoy the rest of his life, to make the most of every second he's got left. And he advises the family and Steph to do the same, and then not to try and change things, because he's basically saying you're screwed, like there's no way to outdo this, so the best thing you can do is just to enjoy your life as long as it lasts, just cherish it. So there is something quite eerie about that, because this was his last movie, and the scene just works as this retirement speech and this goodbye speech from Tony Todd. So that was always going to stand out. But I'm glad he got to make this final appearance. As for the movie itself, I would say it's okay. I didn't love it really. Like, it did promise quite a lot at first, and it definitely delivers on some of the final destination thrills and spills you would hope for, and some of the fun. One of the things about it is that it can't quite find its tone. Like, it's dancing a bit between the kind of cartoony, wacky, inventive deaths, where you're not meant to take it that seriously. You're meant to go in and just have kind of switch your brain off and have thrills and spills. But then it does feel like quite a serious movie as well, in the frame of the original movie. You go into these funeral scenes because people keep dying randomly, and it cuts to a funeral and it's all very sort of serious, and the tone of like the main character Steph is very serious. I think the actress is pretty good, to be fair, but yeah, her character was a little bit too serious, and some of her stuff was a bit on the nose, and there was some quite melodramatic drama, like between her and her brother, like this sort of feud between those two, because he's very cut off from her and felt she hadn't really been around and hadn't really like been there for the family, like she was too obsessed in her studies. So I don't think it quite gets the right balance between the two. Also, the movie feels a bit too try hard. So my main problem with it, I think, was that it was overlong, because it was close to 2 hours, and I'm pretty sure all the other Final Destination movies have been like 90 minutes, 95 minutes, and that's the perfect length for these movies. I think you want momentum with them. You want a very basic setup, and then you hit the ground running and you just enjoy the wacky deaths and some of the antics. But this doesn't have that. This is too long, and it takes too long, and things are really drawn out. And I think they're just trying too hard with like for example, the opening with that whole sky view scene, which is what I'm talking about, where I did enjoy bits of it, and bits of it were well done, and I enjoyed the teases. I actually thought the girl in the scene was quite likable and decent enough. Like the way she was like, yeah, don't sweat it, to the boyfriend, don't sweat them, they're not letting us in, we're not on the list, just act natural, I'm here with you, I'm having a good time. I wasn't so into the boyfriend, just because I think he felt like he was trying a bit too hard, and he just felt a bit more stiff than she did, and not quite as natural. Of them going up to this sky view, this big complex, and and how tense that was at places. And once again, as I said, the mechanics with the Johnny Cash song, and then you had the lucky like Penny, which came back later on. They dragged the scene out as much as they did. It should have been like a longer scene, and there was all these other like connections. You had one of the twists with the Tony Todd character was that he was the son of the jazz singer who was performing that night. He was very young then, and the jazz singer died, and he was one of the like few survivors. There was some fun to be had, like with the obnoxious brother or cousin of Steph, who was like the tattoo guy. There was some fun to be had with him, the whole like fake out in the tattoo parlor, like him working late at night, being really grumpy and sarky, and then you had the music playing the kind of melodramatic song, and him being caught up by his piercings, like his piercings really come back into play, and then the fire setting off, and it's this tease that he's going to get killed, and Steph is them running through all these different things. There's some good humour in bits, like with the football, with her saying like, yes, a football could kill you. This is the way death works. And he was very obnoxious, but I think because you ultimately knew he was going to die and it was going to be quite brutal, which it was, then that was something which was fine. I don't think the deaths really stood out that much. A lot of CGI, and probably in Final Destination that doesn't matter as much, but the CGI just taking you out of it, like it just bits of it made it look very generic. But I think it was just the pacing of the scenes, because they were playing with you, but they were taking too long to get to the actual deaths. Like it could have been a bit more punchy, and then I think there could have been a little bit more entertainment to the deaths themselves. There could have been more one-liners and entertaining gags. Like, there just wasn't enough. You had the odd one, but I think there could have been more of that to, like, liven up the scenes. Because the barbecue scene was quite good fun, and I quite like, once again, little teases, like Julie, like, spitting out the juice, and it's like, there's a bug in there. And all the little teases, and the way you had like things being squashed like the fruit, and then that was like replicating the blood, things like that. In the opening scene, one thing I liked was how the really snooty, snobby guy who wouldn't let them in, the couple, how he basically got like a really gruesome death. Although it didn't happen because it was part of the premonition, but at the time I thought it happened, and basically he's splattered to death. There was too many characters, and they set up, oh, doesn't she have a big family? And that was the issue, really. It's like, it felt like the film had already been on quite a long time by the time they started slowly going through the family. So even at that point, I realised there was quite a lot of the movie to go. You also had the mother, like not Julie's, but Steph's mother, who came back into it. I think try hard is definitely the key sort of phrase, because they did this whole thing of, well, it runs in the family, and at one point Steph drags out like a family tree, and she's going through each one saying, well, he's safe because of such and such, but then we're going to be the next ones, or just making it way too complicated than this movie has to be. Throwing in plot twists, like, because there's this thing where the mother had an affair, which is definitely played for laughs in the scene, so that puts a little bit of a twist on who's going to be next, but once again, they're just trying too hard with the plot. Also, they keep shoehorning little things in which weren't in the original movies. Like, they say at one point the grandmother has been safe for all these years because she stayed in the cabin, and Death can't get her in the cabin. There's a really cheesy scene where she's like teasing Death, So at one point late on in the movie, Steph, her mother and her brother all decide that, well, if we've got a chance of staying alive, let's go to the cabin. Since when have you been safe in a cabin in a Final Destination movie? Lots of people have died inside movie. Fuck's sake. The pacing overall, and that they were dragging everything out too much, and the characters were okay, they weren't great, but then you don't come to a Final Destination movie for the characters. So I would say it delivers some of the things you would hope for in this franchise. Like, there's definitely the basics of what you hope for in Final Destination as a movie, but it was too long, and it just dragged on a bit too much, and I think it just lacked some of the charm of some of the other movies. It's not the worst one. I think that is still 4. That's the weakest one for me, but I don't know. I think this is going to be down there. Not that it's a terrible movie, but I do think it lacks that little something which some of the others have. I really enjoy 3, actually, which I know not everyone does. Another thing which I thought of is how it is there's a lot of Easter eggs for fans. They tease certain things, and it's almost like this montage of previous movies, because they tease at one point the wood on the back of the truck, which we've seen in a previous movie, and they don't do it as much as some like nostalgia sequels tend to do, so that was okay. Some repeat a little bit, because there were definitely certain kill scenes or certain like set pieces which they've done in other movies, so that's another thing. Is I would say this one got quite lazy with the big scenes, with the kills. There actually wasn't anything which I don't think you've seen before, so that was a little bit of a problem. And then they throw in another twist at the end where again it's history repeating itself. So Steph's brother is going on a prom, and his date happens to be wearing basically the same dress as Steph's grandmother all those years ago, and when someone goes to buy, like, I think it's something like an ice cream or something, she has a penny similar to the penny years ago, and that starts dropping, and it basically sets the whole thing in motion, and you get a very Final Destination type death. So I guess that was okay. There was definitely fun to be had with this movie. I'm not going to say it was like terrible, but I would say it's one of my least favourite Final Destinations. I don't know why it had to be close to 2 hours, and overall it didn't have quite the charm of some of the others, and could have done with being a bit more fresh and inventive with the kills. Mild recommendation. I don't think it's going to be like up there in like a top 10 for the year. I could be wrong. I mean, the early buzz has been very good for this, so maybe people are enjoying it a bit more than I have, but it just dragged a bit for me. So that's my thoughts on Final Destination Bloodlines, which is out in cinemas now. I will add this to the playlist, but if you haven't listened to our other Final Destination reviews, then you can check them out on the channel now. But like and subscribe. I will be doing plenty more horror movies this year. We've got a new Fear Street movie coming out. We've also got a new I Know What You Did Last Summer movie. I've been reviewing the previous original movies on the channel too, me and Horror Movie T, who have guest starred on those reviews, so you can check out those reviews as well, and I will cover the new movie when it hits. But thanks everyone, take care, let me know what you thought of the movie, and I'll see you again soon. Something's got a hold on me here.
Drinks all around. Family, You don't get to pick the one you get. Just gotta love the one you got.
I always knew this day would come.
I got it.
I don't think you got it.
I held him off for years.
Charlie! Get up here!
He's a relentless son of a bitch. Won't stop till he finishes the job. Death is coming for our family.
I said, oh, 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 oh,
Grandma, what's happening to us?
Years ago, I had a premonition that started it all. I saw what death was about to do. I saved a lot of lives that night.
Everyone needs to get off the dance floor!
Lives that were never meant to be saved. But death doesn't like it when you mess with his plans. This book, it will show you everything you need to know to keep our family safe.
It all started with Grandma. Death is coming for us because we were never supposed to exist. Watch out!
Only by embracing death will it pass you by.
Maybe Death's not actually coming for our family. Because that would be crazy.
Good luck.